In this unit, we're going to look at Chapter 7, Finding and Evaluating Research. I don't want to say that this is the most important information that you need, but from my perspective, it is pretty critical information. So we're going to look at things that you can do to find support for your speeches. Your speeches are going to need to have research. And so it's going to be important that you think about where are you going to get that information and how are you going to critically evaluate it. Oftentimes what distinguishes an effective from an ineffective speech is the quality of the research that the speaker chooses to use during the speech. Think about the self-talk you engage in when you're listening to just someone talk. Are you ever questioning, well, where'd you hear that? I do this with my kids all the time. So it's important that we learn about how to gather research and to evaluate research. So what we're going to do is we're going to look at primary research. We're going to look at secondary research. Most of you are more familiar with secondary research, and also thinking critically about the research. And then there's going to be a whole other unit we're going to talk about. So let's start with just researching for a speech. Well, it's kind of like investigating. So we kind of have an idea of what we want to talk about. Hopefully it's something we're already interested in, maybe something we already know a little bit about, but we need more than just our own personal stuff. So we need to go and do some research. For the informative speech, you need to have 4 sources. For the persuasive speech, you need to have 5 sources. So where can you possibly find this information? Well, there are a variety of places. So one, we can use primary source. Primary source is the original first-hand data. Maybe it's your own knowledge and experience. That's fine if you have that. You still need 4 other ones. Maybe you're going to conduct a survey. I don't usually have students do that, but that could be something you do, something where you're getting first-hand knowledge. You also may want to interview credible sources. So in regard to your personal knowledge, this is great for choosing a topic, but you can't be your own source of information exclusively. You still need to get other stuff. And interviewing others who have specialized knowledge is a great way to get information for your speech. So let's take a look at that. Interviewing those with special knowledge, you need to look at the information that they have. One, how they have insight into the topic, what really makes them an expert. So you can look at people, maybe it's someone you know, maybe it's someone that you don't know. And you can question these experts to help you structure your research, provide you with ideas, and to make your speech kind of come alive. So this works for some speeches, doesn't always work for all speeches, but maybe you have a topic where this is something that you might want to consider. So we'll talk a little bit about it. Interviewing others. So one, we need to prepare. You can't just say, oh, I'm going to go talk to this person, even if you know this person and they're your best friend or they're your parent or your grandparent or your aunt and your uncle. You want to prepare. So of course you're going to determine who you're going to interview. What qualifies that person as an expert? Why in the world are you going to listen to this person's information? I had a student who did a speech about cheese, how to make a cheese tray, which was really actually kind of interesting, and she interviewed her very good friend who works at Wegman in the cheese department. Wow, that's a great person to interview for a speech about cheese. So once you decide who you're going to interview, you're going to set up the interview. And before you conduct an interview, be certain that you have a series of questions. What are you going to ask the person you're talking to? You can't just go in there without a plan. Okay, so now you're there. You want to make sure you arrive on time, even if it's somebody that you know. Explain the reason for the interview. Hey, I'm doing this speech for this class, and I thought you'd be a good person to talk to. You seem knowledgeable about this. Now these questions, you're going to have some open-ended questions. So, you don't want to just ask questions that allow them to give yes and no answers. But you're also, based on how they respond, you're going to ask some other probing questions. You have a plan, but don't be afraid to deviate from that plan a little bit. Now, hopefully you're taking some notes through this. Maybe you're recording the interview because you won't remember everything that's said. When you're done, you want to make sure that you review that. Do you have everything you need? Concentrate on isolating. Are there any kind of main points? Is there anything that you can take away from that conversation? Be alert for some specific examples. There's stories or narratives or examples from people that actually know something about your topic. Those are great things to include in your speech. And compile a list of key ideas that were covered during the interview. That seems like a lot, and I know that most of you are not accustomed to doing that. But if you take these steps, it can help you get better information if you decide and it's appropriate for you to use an interview. Okay, so those are primary sources. Yourself, maybe you conduct a survey, maybe something like that, or that you interview somebody with direct knowledge. Most of us are accustomed to gathering secondary sources, and this is things like published statistics, text, articles, anything in the media, documents that are somewhere. And even with the ease of researching online, it's all easy. We all do a Google search. I'm as guilty as the next person. Don't underestimate what the library has to offer. There are resources there. These librarians are a wealth of information. They know how to do stuff that most of us don't really know how to do. They sometimes know how to dig a little bit deeper into something. So if we're gathering secondary research, what could we use? Well, don't discredit going to the library. They've got the catalog, so you can use the library's online catalog. You can find specific resources. They also have reference collections. These are things like encyclopedias, yearbooks, dictionaries. Your topic may or may not warrant you using these, but these sources are available to you. Online sources, online databases. Hack maintains a host of online databases, and these are great to use. In order to get certain information published through some of these online databases that are available through universities and educational sites and whatnot, there's a little bit more needs to go into being able to publish there. Anybody can put anything on the internet, but not just anybody can put stuff in some of these online databases. So search engines, this is what we're used to, right? Google it. Google has gone from being a proper noun to a verb, and we're used to using it. We're going to talk about how important, though, it is to critically evaluate those. Also YouTube. Again, things have their place. You need to know when to use them. I use YouTube all the time. Hey, I did some remodeling on my bathroom, and I wasn't sure how to do something with hooking up some new light switches, so I went on YouTube and I looked for videos. Do I really know if that person's knowledgeable? No, I guess I really don't know until I try it, but I have certainly used that. But I need to know the time and place to use it. Websites. Of course, these can provide relevant information for a speech, but we've got to be able to evaluate the objectivity. Okay, is this a website that is sponsoring something else? And you can't just tell by looking at the URL. There are a lot of publications out there that look like they might be real credible sources, that when we dig a little bit deeper, we find that they're not. In this module, there's a whole section. It's called CRAP. These are worksheets we're going to use for internet sources. I also look and evaluate a website. And so it's going to be important that you watch that to think about what you're doing. People, fake news, right? Everybody now is talking about fake news this, fake news that. Well, what's fake? What's not fake? There are some strategies you can use to look at that. Fake news has gotten a lot of, we use that a lot for a lot of different things. So we're going to try to maintain that, to just making sure we have good information. So we'll talk a little bit more about websites in another unit. Blogs. Let's talk about blogs. Again, they have their time and place. I used a blog site years ago when my son was having a reaction, and I didn't know it was a reaction to Singulair. He was, he had allergies. He was prescribed Singulair. I wasn't told about some of the side effects in great detail. So, started noticing things, and then through a process over a period of numerous months, started putting some things together, and where I started getting those thoughts were from blog sites. Now, people who post on blogs maybe have credentials in that subject, maybe don't. Maybe it's okay to use that if you're trying to get some stories or some examples, but generally speaking, you don't want to get your information from a blog. But you may find a blog, in addition to other sources, provide you with some good information. But remember, blogs are usually biased. Wikis. Everybody says, right, don't use Wikipedia, and there's a lot of controversy about this. Here's what I'll say about Wikipedia. Should it be your primary source? No. Can you get leads to other sources from using Wikipedia? Absolutely. And I have done that. Key is to scroll down there to the bottom and see where it links out. Go to those original sources. The problem with wikis are that anybody can go in and change the content. So how do you know if it's really true? There's no great way to get around that. So always be very mindful when you're using a wiki. All right, evaluating online sources. I'm just going to talk about this crap that I talked about. You are not going to find this in your textbook. This is something I use. There's a whole submodule in this module about the CRAP worksheets. It's just important to know that when we look at traditional resource, back in the day, I'm old, back in the day I had to look at books and magazines. Those go through a process, a vetting process, in order to be published, right? There's publishers, they read them, they do everything. Anybody today can make a website. I have websites for my e-portfolios. I can go to WordPress, I can go to Wix, I can go to anywhere. I can make a website. I can say anything that I want to say on that website. And how are you going to prove me that I'm not right, or I'm right or wrong? So we need to be able to evaluate those, and we're going to do that by using these CRAP worksheets. Okay, so let's just try to finish this up. It's going to be important to look at those CRAP worksheets. So, one, and when you're doing research, some tips: take good notes, write this stuff down. You're not just going to remember, and I know what most of you do. You have a website, you have web pages open, you have all these different browsers open, you go back and forth, you look for the information that you think is going to fit with what you wanted to say in the first place. I have teenagers, I know how most people do this. It's not the way you do it. You want to take good notes, read through your information first, cite your sources. When you're going through, you need to have a list of works cited at the end of your preparation outline. That needs to be an MLA or APA format. If you're not taking notes and citing your sources as you go along, you're going to find yourself scrambling at the end trying to get this. And it's always good to have a variety of different sources. Hey, have something from here, something from there, but hey, this is great to do this interview, or personal testimony, something like that. It's nice to have a good variety of sources. So we, in this particular chapter, talks about primary research, talks about secondary research, and talks about thinking critically about your research. I'm going to extend what the book has, and we're going to do that through the CRAP worksheets, so check those out.